An easier way to charge electric vehicles. That's our Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin, and with us is Momentum Dynamics Advisor Roger Atkins. Thank you for joining us, Roger.
My pleasure, Fred. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you're the founder of Electric Vehicles Outlook in the UK and are working with Momentum Dynamics and other companies as well. Tell us more about your background and what this company is doing.
Well, 35 years in automotive, nearly 20 in electric vehicles one way or the other, believe it or not. And about 10 years ago, I stumbled across Momentum Dynamics because at the time I was working for a blue chip engineering consultancy, Ricardo. And working there, I did a kind of sweep, a global sweep of wireless charging tech. And I looked at a whole host of companies, Qualcomm, Witricity, Conductix, Wampler, some folks in the Korean Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. But then I came across Momentum Dynamics, who were unique in offering up and going for the big challenge right from the gate, out of the gate, high power wireless charging. So having done that bit of research, it seemed to me that they were the standout folks. They weren't big cheeses. They weren't part of a big conglomerate somewhere. They were kind of a fairly humble tech company in Malvern, Pennsylvania. And then I got to know Andy Darger, the founder. I didn't unfortunately get to know Bruce, the co-founder. And from that period 10 years ago, yeah, I've championed their cause. I love what they're doing, and I think it's significant. And I think it's going to be a key part of the electric vehicle revolution.
Well, we know what's going on with EVs. The entire automotive industry is shifting rapidly in that direction, perhaps given a little bit of a nudge by Tesla. But give us your perspective on why wireless charging is important when we think about EVs.
Well, I think fundamentally it's because when we think about EVs, we think about batteries, because the battery is the storage device. But if you think about it, Fred, go to a first principle that I know Elon Musk's keen on. How does the electric motor work? It works by being fired up with electrons. So the battery is basically just a storage device for those electrons. And therefore, if you could actually put the electrons in a little and often, and do without these whacking great big batteries, you are going to save a lot of resources, a lot of materials, and it's just going to be more efficient, less weight on board. It's a paradigm shift in not having to carry the energy source to create the momentum in a vehicle by putting that in what I think Momentum like to call, grazing rather than guzzling, energy a little and often. And the immediate and very good fit is for closed loop vehicles, things that go in a certain duty cycle, buses on a bus route, airport buses, ports, airports, all those sort of things, taxis, of course. And in having all of that, you're fundamentally tackling one of the principal challenges, which, we've had for a while, which is, where we go with this whole quest of building batteries. We're already, Fred, seeing a real challenge, and there is a supply constraint for finding enough raw materials to build the batteries. So the wireless charging proposition, I just think, is very elegant, not just in its simplicity of use, but also its commercial proposition. It takes away the need for these, like I said, great big batteries with all this stuff inside them.
So to think of it in a different way, the 300, 400 mile range targets that all these companies are going for, that would not be necessary with the wireless charging?
Well, it's a great question. And I think this is where you have to segment the market. And I'll do it quite easily, commercial vehicles versus passenger cars. So passenger cars, big challenge, because someone might have a passenger car that they only ever drive around the town in. They're never going to need 300 or 400 miles. But of course, some people do. However, with commercial vehicles, you typically have urban operating, defined mileage, and back to base operation. And that kind of reality lends itself incredibly well, I think, in the first wave of mass adoption of wireless charging, because then no, you don't need 300 or 400 miles. You need maybe 100 or 200, whatever it might be. But whatever that is, you're putting the range rather than on board. putting it into the charging environment. So it's, it is that, I think justifiably call it a paradigm shift. It is that switch from having the onboard range to taking it off board. But initially, that's a great fit for commercial vehicles. The passenger car, that's a bit harder of a challenge, I think, but over time, I think that will come.
Very interesting. So what are the biggest challenges here? It would seem to me that and maybe I'm wrong, that the infrastructure could be more complicated if we're building things into a road surface. Tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, these are all exactly the considerations people have. But if you look at the kit you have to put in the ground to have cable charging, that's a pretty disruptive process in and of itself. But once you put in the ground-based charger, because you need a charger in the ground and you need a receiver on the vehicle. Once you have that, you're good to go, and you're good to go over a long period of time. There's not the same challenge in terms of wear and tear on cables and on plugs and all of this stuff, which over time inevitably gets either damaged or just needs replacing. So yeah, of course, you're going to have to dig a hole and you're going to have to stick a charger in the ground. Absolutely right. But you only have to do it once. You're not having to keep going back every 6 months, 9 months, a year or 2 years, carrying out maintenance work. That's the good thing about it. It's pretty simple stuff. One of the frustrations is in showing it to people is there's nothing to see. You've got the receiver underneath the car, you've got the charger embedded in the ground. There's nothing to see other than that moment of revelation, Fred, which I've had, because bear with me, I've been familiar with this tech for many, many years, but in honest truth, it's only quite recently that I experienced it for myself charging a Jaguar I-Pace. And it was almost, perhaps this sounds over the top, but almost like a spiritual moment. I didn't have to get out. I didn't have to find a card. I didn't have to plug it in. I didn't have to wait for the handshake. I didn't have to wait for all of the things that you know and I know and anyone with an EV knows you have to do before you're even getting a charge. This was a charge into that Jaguar I-Pace within, I don't know what it was, 10, 15 seconds. It's just so much more elegant.
Are you saying that it's faster to charge this way?
It is, because if you take that time of opening the door, all the bits in between, I won't go through it, and then getting back in your car, it's easy 5 minutes if you're lucky. But with wireless charging, it's instant, 10, 15 seconds, it's instant. And then if, let's say, you're in a dark corner somewhere, because unfortunately too many chargers, certainly from those that I've seen, aren't always in the nicest place. If you don't have to get out of your car, either to start charging or to stop charging, this saves time. And actually for people who don't like getting out at night, whether it's for whatever person you are, if you don't feel inclined to getting out of your car at night somewhere in the dark, that's the other beauty of it. You're not having to, get out of the vehicle at all, either to stop or start. But more importantly, I think right now, it's for those commercial vehicle operators to not stop what they're doing, that the charging works around their duty cycle. So the bus driver doesn't have to get out and whack a cable in somewhere. He's out and about, just like the taxi driver, and they just stop and charge. It's like plug and play, but this is stop and charge.
Let me ask you this, having the receiver underneath the vehicle and the charger on a road surface, doesn't that make it more susceptible to dirt, grime, wear, tear, weather, or stormy day?
Well, again, great questions. These are the questions people inevitably quite rightly should ask. The answer is no. If you look at snow, look at ice, there's some folks did a video of this, the Jaguar I-Pace charging in Norway, and put a great big thick block of ice on top of it to show that it would work through ice. It works through snow. In Wenatchee, Washington State, they've had this on buses for a few years now, I think 3-4 years. And, that's a place where it snows, snow and ice on the ground. So whether it's all of those things, whether snowplow goes over it, it's all put in such a fashion that it can sustain and work through all the usual rigors and challenges of, real life, the real world that we all live in. It has to work in that, otherwise it isn't a commercial proposition. And the good news is it does.
Well, you mentioned a number of companies that are working on this. Is there a need for standardization?
Oh,
For instance,
absolutely,
like
Fred.
Qi charging for phones, for instance.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. So that's the next big thing to come, without a doubt. And you need that protocol, because we can't go down the same road that we've gone down with cable charging, with different systems and different protocols and whatever. It's been a bit of an unholy mess. So yeah, very good point. That's exactly what needs to happen next.
For more information, where's the best place for people to go to
I
learn
would
about
just go
this?
to momentumdynamics.com, go and look at the website, look at the case studies. If you feel inclined and you're in a commercial kind of capacity looking to do, business, go and talk to some of the end users. Don't talk to Momentum, talk to the people using their kit, and they're going to tell you what they think.
Terrific. Again, it's momentumdynamics.com. Roger Atkins, thank you for taking the time with us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Fred.